Hi, everybody. So, in our previous lecture, we talked about speedlights or flashes. And there is a type of equipment out there that is a little bit bigger and a little bit more expensive and a little bit more powerful. And that piece of equipment is called a studio strobe. Now, is it really necessary for you to buy a studio strobe for this class? No, it is not. I'm simply showing you what's out there and what some people are using. Oftentimes, you'll see dental technicians, denturists, and dentists using something like this in their lab or in their office. Now, that is called a softbox. A softbox is a type of modifier that fits on top of a studio strobe as well as a flash or speedlight. So be careful, don't confuse the two, because sometimes you'll see that box and you go, okay, well, I need to buy something big like this. No, you can actually buy a box for a flash as well. Now, studio strobes are great because they're reliable, because they're plugged in. Now, why is being plugged in important for a light source? Now, with a flash, because it uses batteries, the longer you use the flash, the battery power will go down. So the amount of light will start to diminish. And when the amount of light diminishes, the color temperature of light changes. So if you had, let's say, 5600 Kelvin when you started, by the time the power goes down, you might end up with somewhere around 4000 Kelvin, which is a warmer light, which can throw off your color balance. Now, for taking pictures of a patient, maybe it's not such a huge deal because you're not going to be taking a ton of pictures. But for professional photographers, it could be a bit problematic. Now, let's talk more about the parts that are associated with a studio strobe. There are two major types of studio strobes that I know of. There's ones like these, where the power pack and the condenser is kind of packed into one unit, and you just plug that unit in. And usually you plug more strobes into that power unit. So you have a couple of different heads and one big power pack. Those ones are a bit more expensive unless you have the one that I have, which is like 90 years old. and these ones are generally cheaper ones. Which one is better? Well, it's kind of hard to tell because these are more versatile. You can just grab one of them and you don't have to drag a big power pack. And with that one, you can, if you need more strobes in a small location, you can plug in all of them at once. So I can't really answer that question. I think it all depends on what your needs are. Now, the way that these modifiers are attached to the strobes, they usually have two major connections. There are probably more than that, but there are two major ones that are commonly used. There's a universal kind, which is this right here, which is just a 95 millimeter ring and has a couple little knobs to grab onto the strobe, which I have right here. So if you have a strobe like this, and it has a circle right here, this simply just fits on top of it and gets screwed on. Now, sometimes the strobe will have a connection like this already on top of it, and that's called a Bowen's mount. Now, a Bowen's mount is a type of bayonet mount that kind of locks in place and rotates in there. So when you're picking up modifiers, depending on what kind of strobe you have, you might have to buy a kind of an adapter like I have right here. Okay. If you look in the middle, you can see that it has two types of light bulbs. The one in the very middle is the halogen one, which is used for modeling light. And a modeling light, like we talked about, is used to what? To see where your strobe is going to be pointing. And it can also help you with focusing, especially in low light type of situations. You can also use the modeling light for video, or you can even do photographs with modeling light if you're trying to use a constant light source. So it has a lot of good things going for it. The strobes that I have a couple of different things mounted on them. Now, if you look right here, looks kind of like a lampshade. So if you put that on top of the strobe, it's only going to focus the light a bit more, but it's not really going to diffuse the light any. If you take a grid like this is called a honeycomb grid, and they come in different degrees. This particular one is 30 degrees. You can put that in front of your modifier right here, and what that does, it actually concentrates the light in one beam. And the lower the degree number, let's say this is 30, so it's somewhere in the middle, but with a 10 degree, the size is going to be really small and the light's going to be really tight. What it also does, though, it reduces the amount of light a little bit because of this. I generally will use something like this as a hair light. So if you want to point it at the back of the patient's head to separate them from a background, something like this is very useful. Additionally, on top of this, you can mount a modifier like this, which is called a barn door modifier, which can close or open more the amount of light that you're going to be producing. Those are the major ones that go on top of that. However, in most dental type of situations, you won't see people use something like this. This is more of an artistic type of thing, and the only reason I have these is because I convinced my wife that I do need them, and that I said, you know what, I'm teaching a course in photography, and I really need to buy these modifiers because, you know, I want to be a good instructor. But please don't tell her. You don't really need this for dentistry. They're great to take portraits of your family, which I have. I just recently took portraits of my wife and my daughter. But for in-office type of situations, you're going to need something like this, probably, if you want it. If you don't want it, you can get away with some other stuff. But let's talk a little bit more about this particular one, and I'll move this one out of the way. So, as I was saying previously, this is a newer strobe. This one is a 300 watt one. It's not currently plugged in. What I have on this particular one is a trigger, a radio trigger that actually comes with. And this is the receiver and the transmitter you put on top of your camera. Now, you can set it to work with this trigger, but if you have, let's say you're using two strobes, you can set one of them to work with a trigger, and the other one you can set as a slave. So when this one fires, the light signal from this one will trigger the other strobe. This modifier on top of this strobe is called a softbox. And softboxes are boxes, or sometimes actually they can be octagonal, but more often than not they're this way. And inside of it, they're lined with silver type of material. And in front of the strobe, which is like if I take this off, show you real quick. So you just have the regular strop, and this is the modifier. So inside of this, let me just move this around a little bit. I have this grid on this. And inside of this is you have two types of diffusion material. So this one is called a baffle. It goes right in front of the strobe. And the second one is just the diffusion sheet that goes on top of this. So why do you have two sheets of diffusion material and not just one? If you had one piece, it's usually called a scrim. What scrim does, it just kind of has a gradient to it. So you have a brighter spot and you have a darker spot. With softbox, you want the light to be uniform all around. So that scrim, what it does, it actually diffuses the light initially, so you have a bigger light source, and then this one will diffuse the light secondarily. So the light is pretty much kind of the same all the way around. Further than that, you have this grid, which only allows the light to be kind of concentrated going out this direction and not be more spread out. So this is what you generally will use with softboxes. A lot of times you'll see softboxes not with the grids on them, and that's absolutely fine. The only reason I have these on mine is because I didn't want too much light going onto my background. Also, these softboxes come with either this type of mount, they come with a bones mount, and or they could just have like a little adapter for a flash as well. And they come in different sizes. Obviously, the larger the box, the softer the source. And I think that's about it for softboxes. I mean, they're great. I love them, and they give you really, really good quality light for portrait photography as well as tabletop photography. Now, this light stand right here is the very common light stand that we use often, and they're fairly inexpensive as well. They go up and down, as well as you can do right here. If I unscrew this knob right here, it has this type of adapter to it, which very often you can fit this or something else on top of it, and allows you to actually rotate the strobe around it fairly easily. Now the second knob is this one, which will allow you to change angles and lock things in. And you can also see on a lot of strobes, this one as well, see this little opening right here. Well, that is often used for different type of modifier, and let me show you which one that is. It's called an umbrella. And the reason why it's called an umbrella is because it is an umbrella. So there are a couple of different kinds of umbrellas. There's a shoot-through umbrella, which is this one is. So it's just kind of almost like a softbox, but not really, because like I was telling you guys, it doesn't have the two types of diffusion. It has just one piece of diffusion. So it works more like a scrim instead of a softbox. But these are great, and I've used them quite a bit, and they're fairly inexpensive, a lot less expensive than softboxes are, and they will fit right in there. Just like, well, let me just, sorry, try not to throw everything on the floor. So you open up this little lock knob, and of course, just because I'm trying to show you guys, I'm not doing this properly, and you lock this in place like this, and you just shoot right through it. But the problem is here, let me just put this aside. The problem with this particular thing is, because these strobes are so powerful, this might not be enough material to kind of diffuse things, so you might want to have something in front of it. But they're great. I like them. I usually use them with flashes though, and not with not with the strobes. And with flashes, you use them like this. So there's a little not a modifier, a little adapter that goes on top of an umbrella right here. So let me open up this one. And if you look, so this part goes on top of the light stand, and there's a little slider right here where you can slide the flash on. And you can actually move it closer or further away. So the further away you move the flash, the bigger the spot is going to be. And the closer you move it, the more concentrated the light is going to be. Same thing with the strobe as well. Okay, so this is one type of umbrella that we commonly use. There's also a second type of umbrella. Take this one off. That is used a little bit different. So this one's called a shoot-through umbrella. And this umbrella right here is called I forgot what it's called. I think it's called a reflective umbrella. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check on it. So it has black material on the outside. It has a silver reflective material on the inside. And it mounts the exact same way. So it just goes right through this opening right here. Just like, just like this. But you don't shoot through it. You shoot at it. So if your subject is like me right here, you want to hit the light this direction, and then the light bounces back. And furthermore, you can actually get umbrellas where you can put that white diffusion material in front of it. So pretty much acts like a softbox. And they're also fairly inexpensive, and they're a little bit more packable. Like you saw, you can pack those around quite a bit easily. And they can be used with flashes as well. And I'll show you guys how to work with them and what kind of light they're going to be producing and everything else. Hi folks, so I moved the strobes out of the way because I want to show you how to use speedlights with similar type of modifiers. So first thing we do is we grab our light stand. And light stands are like tripods. It's just a little bit simpler and a little bit less expensive. Well, actually, it depends on what kind of light stand you have and what kind of tripod you have. You can have really expensive one or the other as well. So they're usually fairly compact, and the cheaper ones are going to be a little bit less beefy. So these ones are fairly inexpensive. So they close up like this. That's how usually they come. So you open them up in this direction. And what I do is the heaviest point, so it has 3 legs. So the heaviest point should be pointing towards one leg, and the lightest point should be pointing in the opposite direction, right? So I'm going to put it up like this. And these two will go up. And I'm going to lock them in place as well. And you have that universal attachment right here. Usually you have either a 1/4 inch here, or there's like a 3/8 of an inch with a 1/4 inch adapter for attaching different things. Because you can attach the holders for the flash directly to this thing, or many other things. So like I was showing you guys before, we have this shoot-through umbrella, for example, right? So let's open this up, and we can just connect it. Sorry, I got my overhead lights here in the way a bit. Let me just drop this down just a little bit more. So you just attach it right on top of this and lock it in place like that. And you can change the angle of this fairly easily. And this umbrella goes in and out depending on how concentrated you want the light to be. And then you can just mount your, I have my speed light right here with a radio trigger. So what I would basically do, let me just take the speed light off for now, is I would mount my radio trigger right on top of this thing and lock it in place. And now I can mount my speed light on top of my trigger. So that way, actually, wrong direction, sorry. So that way we can have it all as one piece, just like that. And we can point it downward. So now you have pretty much what you need to take pictures of your patients. But remember what I was telling you, because you have things like this, you're not going to have a properly diffused light like you would with a softbox, but these still work. I mean, we're not taking photographs of our patients to, I don't know, sell them to Vogue or places like this. A lot of times we're doing this for our files, maybe for our patients, and maybe a little bit for artistic license. But overall, this is pretty much it. And you don't even need a speed light like this. The speed lights that I was showing you guys would be more than enough, okay? Or you can take this one off if you want a little bit more kind of better lighting. You buy this kind of umbrella, okay? So instead of shooting through, you will be doing a reversal thing, right? You'll be shooting into the umbrella and bouncing the light back onto your subject, okay? So that works fairly well. There's another type of modifier you can use with your umbrellas, either a shoot-through umbrella or a bounce umbrella as well. So let me take this off. But these are very inexpensive. You can find these for very little money. So I'm going to take off this from the light stand. And we're going to use a little bit of a different mount for our... Oh, I'm like, why can't this close? Because I have this all the way up. Like, did I break this just now? All right. I'm kind of getting a little bit excited about this because I love this subject. I mean, photography, I'm really passionate about photography overall. And buying equipment and using equipment for photography is like a little boy with their toys, and I'm just a big boy with my toys just now. So these boxes I bought years ago because before I had Strobes, I was shooting portrait photography with flashes. And these were great because they can either be used like this, or you can actually twist them down. I can never do this right. I'm afraid I'm going to break this. But technically, half the time I don't know what I'm doing. But you can pack them down pretty tight like this and put them in a bag. So, but when they open up, they're big. I mean, they're like a tent almost. See how big they are? Okay. And with these boxes, you use these type of brackets. So these brackets are made for flashes as well. And if you look closely, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but inside here there is a a detachment for a Bowen's mount. So you can technically not just use this, you can use this type of modifier on it if you wanted to. Or if you buy a softbox that has this kind of lock on, it'd be really easy. Because with these inexpensive ones, the way you put these ones on are a little bit kind of not the most professional way of doing it, but it works. And it's actually, they sell them together with kits, so I know they work that way. So you kind of feed it through here. I feel like I'm doing a magic trick half the time with these things. Oh, come on. I said it can be done. I never said it was easy. I can't remember why it doesn't. Oh, now I remember why it doesn't fit. So you have to actually close this down first. And if you close this down first, then it will fit. So what I'm doing right now is that I am trying to unlock this ring all the way up just so I can put the flash in there. And I know it takes a bit of time to do this, and that's the downside of it. The upside is that you're able to use your speed light with this unit and get a really big, nice light source. And they are packable. You can put them out of sight, out of mind kind of situation if you do not have the room for them. But you see how big this is? It's a pretty big light source, right? So all you do is the same thing, except for sliding things in. This has like a little window where you put your speed light. Actually have to move it like this. And you will lock that speed light in place. So it actually will fire the light. The light will bounce all the way around this softbox and comes out as a big light source. And these are pretty cool, actually. I like these a lot. Okay, so that's it for modifiers on top of the flashes and strobes. Let's talk a bit about reflectors. Now, reflectors come in different shapes and sizes. This particular one is the very common reflector, which is called a 5-in-1. And the reason why it's called 5-in-1 because there are 5 reflectors slash diffusers in here in one little package, and they're fairly inexpensive. You can pick them up on as little as 25 bucks, I think, for this size. So inside of this, you'll have this piece of diffusion material which you can use as a scrim. Remember, scrims are different than soft boxes because when you shoot a light through them, you'll have a gradient. You'll have a darker and a lighter spot. Now, if you want to use it as a regular bouncer, not the same kind of bouncer that you would meet in a nightclub, but a light bouncer, you would have this reversed and you would have the white side on it. You can also use the silver side, but the silver side will give you more light and will give you more specular highlights, kind of like a reversal umbrella does. You can use the gold side to warm up the light and reflect it. We don't generally use the warm side. And you can use the black to limit the light. So a black reflector is still a reflector, but it works in the opposite direction, actually prevents light from getting in there. So it's good to have one of these oftentimes when you're doing either portrait photography or even for tabletop photography. Let's say, for example, I want to use a strobe to take a picture of something, but I want to diffuse my light, and I have one of these. So that will work pretty well for it, except it's kind of big. But the cool thing about these type of reflectors, they come in different kinds of sizes, and this is a tiny little one, okay, that you could use. There's also one that I have that I kind of like, actually. It's not a 5-in-1 reflector, but it's still a reflector. And this one you can put on top of your camera lens. So you can actually, while taking a picture, you can rotate this a little bit, angle it a little bit differently, and you can bounce light on there. You can use something very, very high-tech like this piece of foam board that I've picked up at either Hobby Lobby or Target or Walmart. I don't even remember at this point. But these make really good reflectors as well. And actually, for tabletop photography, um, a lot of times we'll use things like this because you can use very many little ones to change the direction of light and everything else. There are also light bouncers and reflectors that fit directly on your flashes. So you have like little mini soft boxes that you can actually put right on top of your flash. There's one right here. Okay, so this goes directly on top of your flash. But the name is a little bit not true because they call them little soft boxes because it has kind of a shape, same shape. But you have to understand, softbox creates a big amount of light. These don't. They pretty much dampen the amount of light and they might soften the edge a little bit. But the harshness of light, because you're not creating a big light source, will be pretty much the same. So just be aware of that type of situations. There are situations where you can use these, but as far as the light quality is concerned, hard versus soft, these will not give you that soft light you're looking for. Okay? I think that's about it for what I wanted to show you guys. We'll go a little bit more into scrims in later lectures, and we're actually going to be making our own scrims, and I'll show you guys how to make it, and one of the assignments is actually going to be how to build one. But for this week, we're going to have a different assignment for you folks, and I'll go more into that in my next video.